3 years ago, my wife and I started the process to adopt a son. He would come from the Philippines, the land of 7,000 islands. At first, the time went by quickly. We had a lot to do. There were forms to file, appointments to schedule. We got analyzed, psychoanalyzed, we gave blood, we reported finances. There was not a shortage of things to do. And in the beginning, it was quite easy. But after a while, there was nothing left to do. I guess we were way too diligent with our tasks. Our social worker said if we didn't hear from her in a year, don't worry, that's normal. That's when the process got hard. It felt like all 7,000 islands would drift together into one giant continent, like another Pangaea would emerge before our sun would. And soon our prayers became stale. We simply lost steam. There was nothing fresh to pray. You can only pray for patience for so long until you realize how long you've been praying for patience, and you suddenly feel like such an impatient person. You can only pray for your child for so long, and then you realize how little you know about them, and you realize what an awful parent you are. At least you feel like one. It's illogical, but still part of the psychology. We didn't have our own words to pray anymore. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever run out of your own prayers? Have you ever needed new ones to pray? Today I heard an interview on the radio. It was of a young woman in her 20s. She had been driving down the road when suddenly an obstruction was in the roadway and she swerved to miss it. But she hit a tree head on. Her car burst into flames, but she was unable to get out of the car because of the damage to her car and to her body. Well, eventually the paramedics arrived and they ripped her from the burning car, but her injuries were substantial. They didn't think she would make it alive to the hospital. She called her mom. This young woman explains in the interview, I didn't have my own words, and so I asked my mom for hers. But the mom didn't have her own words either. Getting a call like this will do that to you, will leave you speechless. But the mom found the words, God's words, which were ancient and alive. The mom began to pray Jeremiah 29:11. She prayed for her daughter. God, you know the plans you have for her. Plans to prosper her, not to harm her. Plans to give her hope and a future. Again she prayed the same verse for her daughter. God, you know the plans you have for her. Plans not to harm her, but plans to prosper her. Plans to give her a hope and a future. Over and over the mom prayed this, pleading for the life of her daughter, reminding God of the plans He had made for her. She prayed the ancient words in and out like the breath of life. And you know what happened? Her daughter arrived at the hospital alive. And you know what else? Within 15 minutes, God completely healed her of her wounds. And you know what? Her attending doctor, who was an admitted atheist, he came to Jesus when he saw what happened. Sometimes God gives us His words when we don't have our own. He lends us them for a while so we can see clearly and hear better and manage. While Colette and I were trapped in waiting, we were suddenly reminded of the practice of praying Scripture. Years ago, someone had taught us to pray the Bible, and although we had forgotten it, now it was bringing itself to recollection, to remembrance. It wanted to be found. The ancient practice was making itself known to us again. Now we had God's words, and we could pray them. So we did. We anchored our words to God's because they are always right and lovely and true. We began to pray the Bible like so many saints from ages past, like a mother praying for her dying daughter. What else could we do? What else could she do? In particular, we prayed 1 Kings 2:2-3. In this passage, King David was about to die, so he charged his son Solomon with 3 things. First, that Solomon would be strong. Colette and I wanted our son to be strong. It would require strength, not only to survive in this world, but to join his new family, our family. Second, David wanted his son Solomon to show himself as a man. We wanted our son to develop into the man God made him to be. And third, that Solomon would obey God. We wanted our son to obey God and follow his ways. So David's charge to Solomon became our prayer for our son when we didn't have words. As Colette and I prayed the Bible, new hope rose within us. We discovered passion again, clear direction, and endurance. We prayed with purpose, convinced that God was able to do what he had promised. We soared on wings like eagles. We ran and didn't grow weary. We found reviving strength, which lit our path. Then one day, we got a phone call. It was out of the blue on some Tuesday. It was our social worker. We even remembered her name. She had good news. "We have a son for you," she said. Then our hearts danced wildly in the ancient jig, reserved for those who have prayed the ancient prayers. We had joined in the dance.